All right, there's a lot to get to in this one. Nick, was last night more about the Patriots being bad, or was it about what you saw from the Texans being great?
Well, I want to give the Texans full credit. That was a great win for this year's team and a great win for the organization. Never been able to beat Tom Brady and the Patriots. Bill O'Brien never been able to beat the guy he learned underneath. The Texans have had their seasons ended, either de facto ended in the regular season or actually ended in the postseason by the Patriots a number of times. They played great. That was a crowd that had a lot of Patriot fans travel to Houston, or transplants that live in Houston, that came and gave it. It was about 60-40 in the crowd, so the Texans barely had a home field advantage, and they still not only found a way to win, but dominated that game. So I want to give the Texans full and total credit. With that said, the bigger story to me is how the Patriots looked for 3 quarters. That the Patriots, at one point, impenetrable defense, all of a sudden the last month now, giving up 21 points per game. Now, that's good, but that's not the historically great pace we saw this team on through the first 2 months of the season. And the elephant in every room about the Patriot conversations is not an elephant, it's actually a goat. It's the GOAT, Tom Brady, who is not any good in... Let me be careful with what I'm saying here. I almost said he's not any good anymore. He's certainly not any good right now, and the only way you could believe he's going to be good again is if he does have some magical GOAT quotient to go to that he is waiting until the last possible moment to activate. But they could have used it last night. They could have used it against Baltimore. As of this morning, the playoffs do not go through Gillette, and I know everyone's going to blame everyone but Brady. They're going to today. Belichick's going to catch some heat, which he never does. The receivers are obviously going to catch some heat. Tom Brady, in the first 7 drives of this football game, had a 30 passer rating, 3.6 yards per pass, and had thrown for 90 yards. At the end of the game, his numbers looked okay, because he had multiple garbage time possessions, Bart, because they were so bad early. But this Patriot passing attack is in utter disarray, and it's partially on the receivers, but it's mostly on that guy yelling at the receivers right there, Tom Brady.
And you look at what's happening and what they struggle against, that defense, right? Because this team is built around the defense. They tried to muddy the waters up a little bit by being physical with Houston, who has a defense that's trying to improve, but it struggles in stopping the run. So you saw some vintage New England, like we saw last year in the playoffs, trying to ground and pound it and try and beat them down, limit the possession.
And that was effective, by the way. They could run the ball.
Right, but what happened is when they went down on that first drive and only got 3, then that messed up the a la carte, right? Because what happens is the Patriots' game plan is to play from ahead, get you down 2 possessions, make you one-dimensional, and then they're able to take advantage. The problem is, and what they're going to struggle with, is their defense gets exposed against teams that have multiple fast players, elite players, because they can only double so many. And I think Hopkins solidified himself as one of the best receivers in the game, because that was a battle, right? We were disappointed in the battle between Gilmore and Cooper a couple of weeks ago, because Cooper didn't find a way to make a play for his quarterback. It looked like Deshaun Watson, really, the game is slowing down. He's understanding how he's being played. The Patriots came out and tried to go in there in a non-traditional what they've been doing, right, because they're a game plan specific type of defense, and they were going zone. Right, so they were going zone, and Deshaun Watson was figuring out when they were in zone. They were going cover 0, which they killed everybody in cover 0. They played cover 0 against the Jets almost the whole game and forced you to find the open man. Well, because they have so much elite speed, because they have Stills and they have Fuller, they're able to run away from guys when you don't put a defender in the middle of the field. So those were the answers, and it was great watching Deshaun Watson communicate with his teammates on the sideline saying, hey, this is what we're getting. And also Duke Johnson, because the biggest, I feel, weakness is their linebackers in coverage. And we saw that against the Ravens, but it was just the tight ends were able to expose the linebackers. Yesterday, it was Duke Johnson able to expose Hightower, Van Noy, and Deshaun Watson knew exactly where to go with the football. So I think it's more about what the problems that a team like the Houston Texans, the Baltimore Ravens, also next week, the Kansas City Chiefs, with elite speed, putting those guys in the slot where it's harder to double those guys in the slot. And the Patriots are always going to make you fight left-handed, right? And so they tried their game plan was to take away Hopkins, but what happens is the other guys stepped up and really exposed the lack of team speed on the defensive side of the ball of the Patriots.
Look, there are a lot of people who thought that despite the way that this offense has been playing the last couple of weeks, despite the way Brady has been playing, all year, they were still a lock to make it to the Super Bowl because somehow, some way, that's what the Patriots do. After what you saw last night, your doubt, Nick, that this team could return to the Super Bowl, is it as high as it's been all season?
Well, there's 4 teams in the AFC that are clearly the top 4 teams in the conference. Yeah. No disrespect to the Buffalo Bills, who are having a hell of a season. And by the way, Buffalo actually controls their own destiny for the 1 seed.
Amazing.
Because they get Baltimore and then they get New England again. So that's a credit to what they've done. But you look at those 4 teams. Kansas City beat Baltimore, lost to Houston, I believe is going to go beat the Patriots. Houston lost to Baltimore, beat New England. Baltimore obviously beat Houston, lost to Kansas City, beat New England. The Patriots are a week away from being 0-3 against the 3 other teams in the conference that matter. You are going to have to beat at least one, if not both of those, or at least 2 of those 3 teams.
Old guy like Brady needs to bye.
To make the Super Bowl. Now, I do think they're still going to get the bye. I don't think Houston or Kansas City is going to catch them in that regard. But in that first playoff game, if you're the 2 seed, you're staring at Kansas City or Houston. If you get through it, you are then going to Baltimore if you are the 2 seed. And I already know that the narrative today is going to be that the Patriots don't have enough weapons. The Patriots spent a first-round pick on a running back, then a first-round pick on a wide receiver, then traded a second-round pick for a wide receiver. All of that has happened in the last 18 months. There are a lot of teams in the league whose quarterbacks would love for them to have that type of investment on skill position guys. Meanwhile, you still have national broadcasters arguing Julian Edelman is potentially a Hall of Famer.
Right.
So you've got a guy, now I understand he's older, but an 11-year vet who is, to some people's minds, a Hall of Fame player. You've got 2 first-round picks and a player you traded a second-round pick for. The problem is, last night was maybe the best game a 42-year-old quarterback has ever played. And it was a bad game because guys his age are not supposed to be good anymore. And if what you're saying about the defense is accurate, I have no reason to believe it's not, Bart, which is there is a kryptonite to them, and it is overall team speed. Well, then the teams they have to go through to get to the Super Bowl, the Ravens have speed and a very unique offense. The Texans have a ton of speed, and nobody's got more speed than the Kansas City Chiefs.
And you look at the field goal, Forbath missing the field goal, put him behind the sticks. Now, we know Nick Folk may come back. But listen, their path to the Super Bowl, especially, we know what it is if they don't host throughout. They've never made a Super Bowl when they had to go on the road at any point. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think they pick up the call. They pick up the phone, swallow their pride, and they go A/B hunting.
No shot.
Because they have to understand that they don't have the tools that they need to be able to be successful and beat a legitimate team. Not a team with one side of the ball, but the teams they're going to struggle against are right in front of them. There's 3 of them in their conference.
Well, Jenna says no shot. Peter King this morning said he agrees with you, that he thinks Bill Belichick is going to lobby Robert Kraft to allow them to do that exact thing. I don't know if that'll happen, but they need something, and that's the last card they have left to play. Because teams are doubling
element, and Brady doesn't know where to go with the ball, and the guys on the outside don't know where to go.
It's dump-offs to James White if Edelman's doubled.
But
that's all they've got.
And the interception was because Neal gave up on the route and got cut out in front, and you can never stop your route, but that's a rookie making a rookie mistake.
The one other thing you mentioned quickly before we move on, the kicking game has really hampered them this season, and it never hampered them before. It's not a sexy thing to talk about, but at the end of the game, it actually was a factor. Time now for Put a Grade on It, sponsored by CarMax. Deshaun Watson scored 4 total touchdowns against the Patriots yesterday. Gives the Texans their first win over New England since 2010. Nick, put a grade on Deshaun Watson's night.
Quick and easy, A+. He was sensational, and he had a very funny quote after the game. He said, I wanted to make sure I beat Brady once before he hung it up. Ooh. So maybe Deshaun's seeing some writing on the wall as well.
He wanted to try and retire him. I'm going to give him an A as well because he had the Da Vinci Code yesterday. He was finding all the answers, and the game is finally slowing down for him. I'm happy for him.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.